We begin tonight with breaking news on the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. An urgent manhunt is underway at this hour for the sniper who shot and killed Kirk at Utah Valley University yesterday afternoon. We were expecting a press conference from the FBI earlier today, but it was postponed because of, quote, rapid developments. We do not yet know what those developments are, and when that press conference happens, we will take you there live. As of now, the FBI is asking for help to identify this person of interest. They're offering a $100,000 award for information leading to his arrest. He is believed to be college-aged, which helped him blend in with all the students in that crowd of 3,000 people at Kirk's event yesterday. Authorities say they have tracked the suspect's movements, and they are now analyzing shoe prints as well as a palm and forearm print that he left behind.
We were able to track the movements of the shooter. Starting at 11:52 a.m., the subject arrived on campus, shortly away from campus. We have tracked his movements onto the campus, through the stairwells, up to the roof, across the roof to a shooting location. After the shooting, we were able to track his movements as he moved to the other side of the building, jumped off of the building, and fled off of the campus and into a neighborhood.
Investigators have also found a high-powered bolt-action rifle in a wooded area into which the shooter fled. They believe it's the gun the suspect used to fire that single shot that killed Kirk from 200 yards away. Meanwhile, just a few moments ago, Vice President J.D. Vance helped carry Charlie Kirk's casket onto Air Force Two. They are expected, the vice president and his wife, to fly Kirk's body from Utah to Arizona, where Kirk lived with his wife and his two young children. Before leaving for New York City a few hours ago, President Trump told reporters that he's planning to attend Kirk's funeral. He says it will likely happen in Arizona next weekend. He also shared that he spoke today with Kirk's widow.
I spoke to Erica, his wife, and we had a long talk, and she's devastated. She is absolutely devastated, as you can imagine.
At the Pentagon this morning, Trump began his remarks at a 9/11 ceremony by hailing Kirk as a giant of his generation and a champion of liberty. The president says he will soon be awarding him the nation's highest civilian honor.
I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The date of the ceremony will be announced, and I can only guarantee you one thing, that we will have a very big crowd. Very, very big.
All right, let's begin our coverage now with NewsNation senior correspondent Brian Enton, who's live on the ground in Orem, Utah. Brian, what have you been learning about this investigation and the manhunt?
Yeah, there was a sense, Elizabeth, that progress was being made, and you said it. There was this quote of rapid developments when they initially postponed the press conference, but that was 4 or 5 hours ago. They came around to all of us in our media tents and said, we're not going to have the press conference right now, but stay tuned. Ever since then, though, it's been total silence from the FBI. There has been a lot of action on the campus behind me, though. They actually closed off an entire area. We've noticed that the Secret Service has shown up. We thought perhaps maybe J.D. Vance would be coming here. It doesn't seem like that's happening, but we do know that FBI Director Kash Patel is on the way to Utah right now. The big development of the day, though, is the release of that photograph which you showed, which shows the suspect captured by surveillance video. There it is, inside the university. He's got a hat and glasses on. But if you know who that person is, it's obviously clear enough of a picture that you would recognize him. And the assumption is that tips have been coming into the FBI and that's why they have suddenly gone quiet. There have been some rumblings that there could be a press conference later tonight, and perhaps that's why Kash Patel is on the way here. But at this point, nothing has been confirmed, Elizabeth.
All right, Brian Enton live on the scene. Obviously, the minute you get word of something happening, give us a wave. We'll get you right back on the show. In the meantime, let's get reaction from our law enforcement experts. I'm joined by former FBI Assistant Director Chris Wecker, and Lenny DePaul is a retired commander of the U.S. Marshal Secret Service. Great to have both of you here. Lenny, authorities are asking for the public's help in identifying this suspect. They're offering a $100,000 reward. This is exactly how they caught Luigi Mangione. This guy is somewhere. All it takes is one person to see him, spot him, and call in.
That's right, Elizabeth, and good evening. I mean, right now they're chasing a ghost. I mean, they've got this photo of this guy, but no name attached to it. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out. I mean, it's very important, though, that they continue to do their Q&Aing that they're doing. And he's gone dark. He's off the grid. I think human intelligence are important, signal intelligence. They got to put this puzzle together and connect the dots. But the public is going to be important. They need to identify this guy.
Chris, they obviously were not able to identify him through any kind of facial recognition technology. Is this because he's not in some kind of system? I mean, why weren't they able to use data banks of driver's license photos, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, not all of those, the state driver's license bureaus are ready for prime time when it comes to facial recognition. There are some that are, but not all of them. Also, I think what we can surmise is that the fingerprints didn't show him in the FBI's IAFIS database, the criminal print database. So
that just means he hasn't been arrested, right?
Before.
Yeah.
That's right. It hasn't been arrested before, and he's not in the CODIS database, because I'm going to assume that they got some DNA off that where he put his cheek on the rifle, or the rifle itself, and then whatever else they found in the woods there. So the photo is going to be the thing that identifies him. Whenever you get a good photo out like that, somebody that knows him and is close to him or has been associated with him, his family, they will recognize that photo. And at the time they put it out, they didn't know who he was. I'll bet they know who he was by now, because that photo's been out there for a while, and given the nature of social media and the way the news cycle works now, I'm sure that he's been identified at this point. They may not know where he is, but I'll bet they know who he is.
CCTV cameras tracked his movements, almost all of his movements. We now know that he arrived on campus 28 minutes before that gunshot. We know he used stairwells to get to the roof, then jumped off the roof after shooting Kirk and fled into nearby neighborhoods. Many homes nowadays have Ring cameras or security cameras, so they'll, I'm sure, be going through all those cameras, right, Lenny?
Oh, 100%. I mean, he's certainly dropping breadcrumbs. He's either, very sloppy at what he did or whatever, but he may not even be from the area. Like I said, he's off the grid. He's playing fugitive or whatever, but he needs provisions. Human instincts turn into animal instincts. They make mistakes, but this was certainly a premeditated assassination. Historically, I think with video cameras, you're mentioning security cameras and whatnot, he had to have reconned this place. I mean, he had been up on that roof. There's no doubt. There may be others involved, but what do they have, last week on cameras or a few days ago? And I'm sure they got answers to these questions, and they're keeping it close to the vest.
Chris, they found the gun. It was wrapped in a towel in the woods. It's a bolt-action rifle, an older model, a Mauser 30-06. What can you tell me about this kind of gun?
Yeah, actually, the 06 means it goes back to 1906, believe it or not. It's a
Really?
very powerful, very accurate hunting rifle. Yeah, it's been improved since then, obviously, but it's the parts are imported, but they're assembled here. Then it's a traditional hunting weapon, which would be consistent with the area. That's an area in Utah where people hunt a lot, and it obviously has a scope on it. So it's a very accurate weapon at the distance that shot was fired.
And Chris,
it doesn't break down. It's a big, long weapon.
Oh, it doesn't break down.
Does not break down.
So that's why he ditched
Meaning
it.
He would have had a hard time taking it apart and hiding it under a shirt or under a coat.
Right, but that also
like
raises the question why nobody noticed a guy with a big rifle walking onto the campus 28 minutes before the Charlie Kirk event began. Lenny, there also were reports that messages were etched onto the bullets and onto the gun. We don't know exactly what was written, but there are reports that they were statements expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. This is, again, right out of the Luigi Mangione playbook, who also engraved things on the bullets that he used to assassinate the United Healthcare CEO in New York City.
Right. I mean, he's sending some sort of a message. He ditched that rifle for a reason. And the bigger question is what Chris said. How'd that rifle, did he plant that there a couple of days ago? I mean, that'd be awful hard to sneak that thing in
Right.
without anybody noticing. But yeah, with what he's etched on the bullet casings and whatnot, and in that question that was posed, you know, and then all of a sudden the shot came out. And actually the question was asked twice. I believe that guy was interviewed and said he had no idea. You know, maybe the shooter was waiting for that, but he didn't have a clue. So apparently they interviewed that guy. But yeah, pretty interesting on what he etched on the rifle and on the shell casing.
Finally, Chris, we've heard that the first 24 hours are crucial in finding somebody after something like this. How concerning is it that we're beyond that point and we still haven't found him?
Yeah, it's certainly given him enough lead time to get a far distance if he's on the move. If he's, you know, I thought initially this guy was really skilled and maybe even professional. That doesn't seem to be the case. He seems to have known how to get there, but he didn't know how to hide the evidence, or at least didn't plan ahead on how to hide the evidence of the gun and all that other evidence that he left behind. That is just a bonanza, the footprints, the finger, you know, the palm prints and that sort of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know whether he had the presence of mind to set up a hide or a house somewhere that, as Lenny pointed out, that's provisioned where he can hole up for a while. That would be, you know, I think a more skilled option than to be trying to bounce around in a car or the public transportation systems and run the risk of being caught. So I think that he is holed up somewhere. And it's, you know, we may be in it for the long haul, at least for a couple of days.
Well, and then there's a question, of course, of DNA evidence, which they might be able to retrieve from the rifle or even from the spot where they believe he fired that shot. Chris Wecker, Lenny DePaul, thank you both so much for joining us, lending us your expertise on all this.
Thank you.
All right, Jack, first of all, you were just hosting Charlie's show. You were on his show as a guest all the time. Today's show was obviously a memorial to him. Must have been extremely difficult for you and the team to do. How are all of you doing?
Well, thanks for having me on and giving me this opportunity to talk about my friend. It's rough. I certainly wish I were here under better circumstances. I'd be lying if I said I was okay with it or that things were going well right now. But I know that Charlie would do it for me. I know that I can hear his voice in my ear saying, keep going, don't quit. And that's just who he was. He was the full embodiment of the never quit attitude, even to the point of what happened yesterday where, you know, he went out the way he lived, fighting for the truth, holding a microphone on campus, talking to people. That's who he was.
That's who he was. His clips of his debate, Prove Me Wrong, on college campuses across the country have for years gone seriously viral. Any kid in high school and college and older, but especially that generation, has seen them. They've been viewed by hundreds of millions of people. Most people knew him as a fast, as a witty, as a fierce conservative debater. But what was the private side like? I keep hearing from those who knew him well that, you know, he could be very confrontational, although always respectful in these debates. But in person, he was unfailingly polite and lovely as a person.
He was, and for anyone who, you know, had the opportunity to know Charlie, you would know that this true size of his heart was enormous, and he led with his heart. You know, most people know Charlie, as you say, from the quick clips and the edits and the TikToks and campus, you know, debate sessions. But to me, that's not Charlie. That's Charlie at work. Charlie, the person, is my friend and my brother and the guy who is always up any time of night, any time of day, except for Saturdays. He always took off Saturdays. And he loved to chat about his Christian faith. He and I went back and forth so many times over various parts of the Bible and Scripture, sharing different verses with each other. Every morning, he used to text us whatever verse he was reading that day, and he's always had that mischievous grin where, he loved laughing. He loved jokes. And, I thought it was funny because a lot of people, when South Park recently did this episode about Charlie, and a lot of people were, confused or surprised. They said, oh, Charlie seems to be embracing it. And I remember I watched it with him and he was just laughing the whole time because that's how Charlie was, that he knew that this world, and he truly believes that this world is just a temporary thing that we're in. And he always was able to laugh about it. So really, I'm just going to miss the person that, I was always telling jokes to and sending, inappropriate memes to, and just being my friend.
I know you spoke to Charlie after the assassination attempt on President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, because that was a scary security situation. At that point, you talked to Charlie about his security situation because he's controversial. He had gotten death threats. A lot of people would protest when he would appear. What did he tell you about his security situation after that Butler assassination attempt on President Trump?
Well, that's right. And, I spoke to him immediately after, and even, we were headed to an event once a couple of weeks later. And, with my military background, having served in the Navy, I had to say to him, Charlie, these events after Butler, they're not safe. And yes, you can have a security team, and you can have a bubble, and you can have a vest on, but it's never going to be 100% if you're out in an open air campus quad like you do. And he basically said that he didn't want to stop, that he wasn't going to stop. And the reason, though, was
even though he knew the
not
threat,
because he wanted, even though he always knew the threat. I mean, Charlie got death threats every single week of the year, almost every single event he went to, he was getting death threats. This was something that he lived in. He never talked about it. He never talked about it, but this was a constant thing for him and for his family, personally, that they had to deal with wherever he went. So he never traveled without security. It's just something that at his point in his career that he was dealing with on a 24/7 basis. Even though he knew the threats, he said what he said was, the kids always come and the kids want me there. And he went for them. And I really want to stress that in whatever I say about Charlie, is that this wasn't about him and it wasn't about followers. It was actually about meeting people.
Yeah, here are Charlie's own words. We as a culture have to get back to being able to have a reasonable disagreement where violence is not an option. When people stop talking, really bad stuff happens.
And that's Charlie. If you came to one of these events, he would always say the rule was, if you disagree, come to the front. And if you have a disagreement, I want to talk to you first. And he would always try to meet that person, not on a political frame, but he would try to go around the politics and speak directly to their heart, try to find out what made them tick, what their interests were, and try to meet them on a human level and see the person beyond the politics. And I really hope that a lot of people can see the person that Charlie was beyond the political side of him.
Have you had a chance to speak to his wife, Erica?
I haven't spoken to her directly yet. She's obviously very wrapped up in things right now, although she and my wife are close. I've spoken to some people around her who say that she's being incredibly strong right now. Erica is just someone who I know is incredibly devout Christian. She's deeply, deeply faithful, and it is that faith that's going to carry her through this.
Yeah, this is the worst possible thing that can happen to a family. She's got a lot to deal with right now. Jack Posobiec, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on the show to talk about Charlie tonight.
Thank you. God bless.
All right, so is it possible that there could be maybe something positive that could happen now after this awful event in Utah? College students with different ideologies are actually on one college campus coming together. I'm going to speak live to the leaders of the Connecticut Young Republicans and Young Democrats next. Plus, a man accused of trying to assassinate President Trump is on trial, and he's defending himself. It is not going well. All right. I imagine you're maybe ready for a little bit of good news. And for what it's worth, the brutal assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk is prompting some rare shows of unity tonight from groups that are normally divided. In Connecticut, two political groups have joined together, publicly condemning the savage violence that took Kirk's life. The Young Republicans and the Young Democrats of Connecticut each posted a joint statement on their social media pages. It read in part, "What happened at Utah Valley University is unacceptable. We reject all forms of political violence. There is no place in our country for such acts, regardless of political disagreements." Now, the message is unusual because it came from both Republicans and Democrats. It's a united call for civil discourse and debate, regardless of how different one's opinions may be. Charlie Kirk, who devoted his life to open, if not pugnacious debate, would no doubt agree with the spirit of that message. We're joined now by Patrick Berlin, chairman of the Connecticut Young Republicans Club, and Alan Cunningham, president of the Connecticut Young Democrats. Thank you both for being on the show with us tonight. So, Patrick, I will start with you, although I want to get Alan to answer the question afterward. You've been getting a lot of praise because you issued this statement together, signed from both of you. How did you decide to do this together with each other rather than just posting these statements separately?
Well, thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it, Elizabeth. This came together because just moments after this horrible tragedy, Alan reached out to me and expressed an interest in putting together a statement that would speak to the members of both of our organizations. And it took me no more than half a second to agree to this. I think it was such an important thing for both of us, especially for our members. We weren't aiming for something that would be this broad in terms of reach, but we were so glad that it resonated, and it was so important for our memberships that we got out and stood up for the legacy of Charlie and everything he stood for.
Alan, you did exactly what so many right now on social media are calling for. We've seen Democrats denounce the violence, and we've seen Republicans denounce the violence, but they do it separately to their own separate audience, which is also divided. How did you have this idea? Why was that your first instinct to do this jointly with the Republicans?
Well, I thought it was important, when we saw the events unfold. Patrick and I have never actually spoken in person before.
Wow.
Our groups have never come together. And I thought in this moment, because we knew what the reaction would be across the country, that would be a lot more meaningful for our members if we spoke as one. Of course, we didn't expect this to become a wide-reaching statement that members of Congress and a lot of people across the country would start repeating and start tweeting and showing us an example. But to an extent, I'm glad that it's reached that point, because I think it's really powerful to show that both sides of the aisle can come together and speak as one to denounce political violence.
Patrick, so much of the reaction has been very highly partisan. People are in shock. People are angry. People are distraught. We are seeing, in some respects, everybody retreat to their silos rather than reach across the aisle as the two of you have done.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that there are people that might feel paralyzed or pressured to be partisan about this. But I think what the outpouring of support that we've seen for Charlie, not just in reaction to our statement, but so many people, is a good sign. I think a lot of the energy that we're seeing is a commitment to the legacy of Charlie and the defense of free exchange of ideas.
Alan, you represent both of you, many college-age people. In your statement, you asked for prayers not only for Charlie Kirk and his family, but for all the students at Utah Valley University. You know, I heard one student last night say she was traumatized by what she saw at that event yesterday. She saw Charlie Kirk shot. She's terrified to go back to school. I cannot imagine that she is the only student there who feels this way.
Well, it was important for us to include that, Patrick and I are from the state of Connecticut, and we know firsthand what it's like when tragedies strike your communities. That ripples across not only those in attendance, but the entire community at large. So it's important that we send our condolences and our thoughts to the entire people, because yes, everybody in the audience, of course, was affected, but that's going to affect the entire community for a long time.
Yeah, it really is. It's the place where they live and go to school, and a place where they just witnessed an assassination right in front of them. Patrick Berlin, Alan Cunningham, thanks for setting an example for everybody else in this country. Well done, gentlemen.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
All right. For more on the political fallout on Charlie Kirk's murder, we're joined by NewsNation political contributor Chris Cillizza. So, Chris, I was so interested in what you wrote today. You said the murder of Charlie Kirk is awful. The reaction to the murder is even worse.
Yeah. First of all, Elizabeth, I want to take a second to praise those two guys from my home state of Connecticut.
Pretty great.
Connecticut doesn't get all that much shine nationally, so it makes me happy to see them doing the exact right thing. To your point, look, I was slightly worried, and I wrote that people might think I was minimizing the murder of Charlie Kirk, which I'm not. But in a way, okay, a deranged individual who I know we haven't yet caught, but shot Charlie Kirk. That is horrendous and awful. The thing that depresses me even more is lots of people who are not deranged reacted in utterly typical ways that I think speak to why we're where we are. This whole well, the right causes more political violence than the left. It's 63% over here and 37%. None of that. That is not the conversation. The conversation is political violence is a stain on all of us. It speaks incredibly poorly of where our democracy stands and of where the right to express yourself freely stands. That's a problem whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, independent. You don't pay attention to politics. Right. You're a kid and you can't vote yet, right? And I think when we divide it into camps about who's to blame for this, that to me, that is what worries me in the longer term.
Yeah, you wrote, this isn't about assigning blame. It's about waking up to the fact that our country's in deep trouble. I mean, we have everybody going, it's your fault. You did this. You're evil. You're to blame. And it feels, I mean, are our elected leaders up to meeting this moment? Because we saw the House of Representatives, late yesterday, devolve into chaos and shouting when they wanted a moment of prayer for not only Charlie Kirk, but the students who were shot at a Colorado high school. There are lawmakers screaming at each other.
Our elected leadership, this is not new, but did not cover themselves in glory in their reactions yesterday. You mentioned the House incident. The debate was over there whether there should be a silent prayer or an out loud prayer. To me, it's like an out loud prayer is fine. You want to pray silently. You don't want to pray at all. That's fine. But this moment, the school shooting, the Charlie Kirk shooting, and I'll add too, Elizabeth, and I'm no Trump basher, candidly, but I will say, Donald Trump saying, this demonizing of our political opponents is what got us here, and then going on to talk about the radical left. Look, Donald Trump has called his opponents evil. Donald Trump has said these people hate America, and we don't know we don't know who the shooter is, much less, I think, his motivations. I think the police have at least said they believe it's a male. It worries me when our elected leaders behave like this. I wrote down one name that I do want people to pay attention to for someone doing it right. Spencer Cox is the governor of Utah.
Yeah, he was
great. A Republican. He was a Republican. It's a very Republican state. But it's not just yesterday where he was good or today where he was good in a moment of crisis. This is a guy I've known for 8 or 10 years, just covering him. I don't know him personally. He is someone who is committed to the idea of we can disagree without being disagreeable, that reasonable people can have reasoned disagreement. Spend more time with Spencer Cox than the back and forth on the House floor or even that 4-minute thing Donald Trump said. We'll be better served as a country with more Spencer Coxes.
He was great. Denouncing political violence, period, full stop. That's it.
That's it.
All right, Chris Cillizza, tough times right now. Great to have you on to...
Hey, thank you for having me and let me express myself. I very much appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Coming up for us, we're hearing new details about one of the attempted assassinations of President Trump. The suspect in that case, Ryan Ruth, is representing himself as he's on trial. So why did the judge cut him off in his opening statement? We'll get into it next. be a stretch to say we're living through the age of the assassin, but it's not a big one. The black-clad killer of Charlie Kirk has joined a despicable club that, according to federal prosecutors, almost included this man, Ryan Ruth. They allege he traveled to Florida last September to kill Donald Trump while the president was golfing. Ruth may well have succeeded, they argue, if it were not for the Secret Service agent who spotted Ruth hiding in the bushes and shot at him. Today, a jury in Florida heard opening arguments in Ruth's trial. Prosecutors argue the 59-year-old Ruth methodically tracked down and waited for Trump and then aimed his rifle through the bushes toward the then Republican presidential nominee. Ruth pleaded not guilty to attempted assassination, but he faces a possible life sentence. But here's the twist. Ruth is representing himself at the trial, and he has no legal background. Given that, his opening statement was pretty much what you'd expect, a rambling soliloquy that referenced Adolf Hitler, Vladimir Putin, and the birth of humanity. The court endured about 10 minutes of this before the judge finally cut him off, ruling his opening arguments were irrelevant. The first witness on the stand was the Secret Service agent credited with thwarting the attack. He identified Ruth as the person he saw in the bushes and said he feared for his life and for the life of the president. Joining us now is Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal contributor and Law and Crime Network host. Okay, this is bizarre, what Ryan Ruth is doing. The rest of his life is at stake. I mean, I don't understand. Do they have to be mentally competent before they can represent themselves?
Hey, listen, as long as he understands the charges against him in the process, he can represent himself, and he has chosen to do that. I didn't think I was ever going to hear that Homo erectus was going to come out in an opening statement.
Yeah, he was rambling about the origin of the human species and global conflicts. At one point, he started to cry in the opening arguments.
And here's the thing, right? He has standby counsel, but the deal of that is he can't then turn to them for substantive advice. If he wants to represent himself, judge said, this is your decision, gave him the warnings. He then can't go to his counsel and say, wait, should I call this witness? How should I ask this witness? How should I deliver an opening argument? This is all on him. Why did I go to law school? You think it was because I like law books and I wanted to read? It's to learn the law. It's to learn to actually how to make arguments. Unfortunately, he should have taken the advice and actually used his attorneys.
In jury selection, he was asking people about their stances on Gaza and the war in Ukraine, even about Trump's proposed acquisition of Greenland. Nothing to do with this case.
He almost tried to make what we call a Batson challenge, too. He was saying that jurors...
Is that a thing?
It's a real thing. It's basically accusing the other side of trying to get rid of jurors based on race. And he didn't go that far. He also was complaining that a lot of the jurors, which is true, have ties to law enforcement, but he wasn't properly articulating those challenges, and it's to his detriment.
In their opening statement, prosecutors said Ruth waited 10 hours in this sniper's nest that he built in the bushes along the golf course. He made a to-do list of things he needed to buy, and including cardboard zip ties, diapers, because he was going to be waiting for so long, and wrote a reminder to himself, spray self with bug spray.
Yeah, so also waited 10 hours, checked the weather to see what was going on, used aliases to not only purchase a cell phone, but track the president's movements. So it does become a question. What's the inference that a jury can make? That he was looking for a tea time that he wanted to see? It was, I mean, that's the idea, that he was tracking Trump.
Fascinating. The first witness on the stand with the Secret Service agent who spotted him in the bushes didn't see the gun until he was 5 feet away.
Now, that was harrowing testimony because he said he approached him, said he saw a smile on the defendant's face and quickly took out his weapon. And thankfully, the defendant didn't even fire a shot. But that is really compelling testimony. I can't be surprised why prosecutors called him as the first witness.
5 feet away before he saw the gun. Amazing. All right, Jesse Weber, what a bizarre scene in that courtroom. All right, thanks. We're going to go back to our top story on the manhunt for the suspect in Charlie Kirk's murder after the break. But first, today marks 24 years since the deadliest terrorist attack on American soil. The nation honored the nearly 3,000 lives lost on 9/11 with ceremonies in New York City, at the Pentagon, and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. President Trump traveled to New York after speaking at the Pentagon. He is right now at a Yankees game in New York City. He waved to the crowd before the game began. He also shook hands with Aaron Judge in the clubhouse before a ceremony honoring the 9/11 victims and the 9/11 heroes who saved so many lives that day. We'll be right back. All right, now back to our top story tonight. Officials are still searching for the gunman who shot and killed Charlie Kirk at a Utah Valley University event yesterday afternoon. The FBI has offered $100,000 as a reward for any information leading to this man's arrest. My next guest has covered some of the most heinous crimes in America, host of Banfield on NewsNation. Ashley Banfield joins us now. Ashley, getting that photo out, I know they've already gotten more than 200 tips. I'm wondering if there is a link between the fact that they have gone sort of radio silent ever since putting that photo out. Perhaps they're being inundated with calls or tips.
Possible. They might even have them. But I will tell you this, I would expect to see more images like this in the days to come, because that's how we were led to Luigi Mangione as a suspect in the killing of Brian Thompson. Same thing with Brian Kohberger. Little by little, piece by piece, they find you. It is impossible to hide in this day and age, whether it's on video or whether it's what you leave behind on a molecular level.
Yeah, they could have his DNA from the rifle that he was holding, and obviously holding tightly in order to fire. He might have left it at the crime scene. They've got prints of his. They've got a shoe print. There's a lot of evidence there. He fled into a neighborhood. As I was talking to Chris Wecker earlier in the show, there are Ring cameras on almost every house these days. Those cameras pick up a lot.
There are Tesla cameras. I mean, one Tesla can have cameras in all directions. You can't hide. Luigi Mangione couldn't hide. And you're right about the marksmanship. I don't know any marksman I've ever spoken to who don't say they sweat a little as they're taking a human target. And so, yeah, I think that there'll probably be some touch DNA. Look at his hands. They have no gloves. His shoes are very evident in the pictures that they sent out. They're specific sneakers. And I think the touch DNA that he left behind with the palm print, that could also, hopefully there's some fibers from the shirt left behind in the forearm print. But there'll be plenty of things to try to catch this guy, not the least of which that shirt. If I were a betting man, they should be looking at all the different deliveries of that particular shirt, that design that came into that vicinity. There were only 3,000 people there. They weren't all wearing that shirt. So even if you had to go through 400 or 500 shirts that were delivered, half of them will probably be women or people who aren't that age. And then the others you track down. Good old gumshoe detective work. It took a couple months to get Brian Kohberger, but they got him.
Either way, it is clear this was carefully planned. This was not some happenstance thing. Somebody planned this very, very carefully.
You only need to watch forensic files to see how many people think that they're smarter than the average cop out there, only to be smacked in the face with their own oops, didn't realize that moment.
Yeah.
In this day and age, I'm sorry, forensics alone and video alone will catch you.
All right, Ashley Banfield, I'll see you tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern.
You bet.
With
Good to
all
see you,
the
Elizabeth.
latest developments. Great to see you as always. And we'll have much more in our top story when Chris Cuomo joins me after the break. All right, tonight Bill O'Reilly uncovers the world's most ruthless men, both past and present, in a NewsNation special.
It's been well established that confronting Vladimir Putin can be bad for your health, right? You'll die.
Russian activist and Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny has died.
So Putin's enemies, businessmen, journalists, dissidents, defectors, all end up dead publicly. Why does Vladimir Putin do these things so publicly on the world stage?
Sends a message that he's above all law, he's above America, he's above everybody. He can do what he wants, and he will.
NewsNation's Leland Vittert hosts Bill O'Reilly confronting evil tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern only right here on NewsNation.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.